Hey, 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 welcome to Relationships 101. I'm Pastor Sean Strickland here with my super cute husband, Pastor Edwin Strickland, and we are your proud host of Relationships 101,
Yes,
where
yes,
we
yes.
are committed to helping people improve their relationships because, after all, who doesn't want better relationships?
Everybody should want better
Everybody wants
relationships.
better
They
relationships.
should want them at home. They should want them at work, at their church, with their family and friends. Everybody needs and wants better relationships.
And as I get older, the thing that just trips me out more and more, babe, is that in school we are taught so much stuff, right? Except how to manage ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we are taught lots of stuff, and I'm not saying we don't know how to need to know how to read and write and know our colors, but man, listen, lessons should have gone much deeper than keep hands, feet, and other objects to yourself, right?
Yep.
We should have had some conversations about why do you want to put your feet on other people, right? And so now many of us, as we are older, we are learning that love is not enough. How many of you have lived long enough to know that love is not enough?
Amen to that.
And the truth of it is that we believe that there are lots of people who have gotten divorced who didn't have to get divorced. They didn't have the right tools. We believe that there are times where there are siblings that don't really talk to each other or family members that don't really engage. And it's not because they don't love each other, it's because they never had the skills in order to have effective relationships. So, for those of you who may be new, and let me say this, can you go ahead and love the broadcast for me? Can you go ahead and hashtag live and tell me where you're watching from? Can you go ahead and share this with somebody? Tag your spouse, tag somebody that you think you might want to be booed up with, tag your best friend, tag your cousin. We talked about this. I post this once a year where I talk about, at least once a year, where I talk about how even Unica and I, this Relationships 101, it is not just for married couples. That one of the reasons that we have such a healthy relationship is the communication we have about what we expect in a relationship. So we need you to get everybody here, right? We want you to tell us where you're watching from. We want you to share it in groups where you're an admin. We want you to put it on your page, put it on your story, and we need you to tag some people and let's go and grow together.
And I have to say this because somebody asked me. I didn't want to give them the wrong information. Someone asked, 'cause I think you said that on Sunday, shared in groups where you're the admin. Someone says, well, I'm not an admin, but people share all kinds of things in our groups because they're able to, which I think is a good point. If you have permission, you can share it. If you're an admin, absolutely you can share it. The goal of it is not just that you're the admin, it's that you're not sharing it in groups where you can get in trouble. That's what we're trying to say to you. So someone asked that question, and I wanted to answer
that's a
that.
good clarification.
I wanted to clarify that if you belong to a group and the rules of that group is that the members can share different things, or you can share and the admin approves it, that's fine. But don't share it anywhere where you may end up getting your particular page or something tapped for being sharing something they consider spam. So I think that's what we're trying to express to you. We want you to share it, but not at the detriment of messing up your Facebook page or something like that.
Well, and also not in places where, like, if there are multiple people in the group and it's already been shared,
Sure.
don't share it again there
Right.
because that actually irritates people.
It does.
I'm admin for several groups. People don't like that. So we want to be well received.
Yeah.
We don't want people to decide that we bugaboos before we even get a chance to
minister
to minister to them and to help them. But so we need your help in the social media outreach today. And I know that many of you have already liked the broadcast, and we appreciate that. If you haven't, we need you to do that. We know that some text. Bron says she is finally not on the replay. She is live, and we are glad to have you here. And so, but what we really need you to do is, everybody knows a couple, a person, tag somebody and say, come over here and check this out. Because today we're going to be chatting about how our own personal standards actually improved our relationship, right? And it's a topic that I'm actually pretty excited about, right? And so, you want to give a couple of announcements while we're still waiting for people to come in, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Most of our announcements, our next Relationship 101 will be in May. It's the second Tuesday in May, so you can always go ahead and mark your calendar for that. We're excited about tonight. I have a special announcement, but I'm not going to make it till the end. So you got to stick around. And if you want to know, and you do want to know what's going to be happening this month, you'll want to stick around. So stick around, and I'll let you know that about at the end. But tonight, we're going to just have a candid conversation about this idea of what it means to raise our own personal standard, and how raising your own personal standard can improve not just your romantic relationships, but it can improve your familiar relationships. It can improve your vocational relationships. It can improve your friendships and every other kind of relationship that you have. Because again, one of the things that is innate in human beings is this idea of protecting ourselves. And sometimes when we try to protect ourselves, we do it at the detriment of the relationship. But what we have found is that when you raise your own personal standard, you're able to communicate that to other people. And when you communicate that to other people and hold them and yourself accountable, the things in your life that used to could cause consternation in relationships, we just get rid of those things. And the more we get rid of it, the more we can enjoy the people of those relationships.
Well, so actually, these are my notes, and I'm really proud of myself because I have notes, and I'm actually even more proud of myself because I sent the notes yesterday.
Yep, you did.
And so I like some words of affirmation right now, not just yep, you did.
Thank you for sending your notes yesterday. This was your topic. So.
No, this is what I want you to say. I want you to say, babe, I'm proud of you.
Babe, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. It takes so little, right? It takes so
little. I'm proud
of
you for doing your notes.
Don't say I'm proud of you for doing your job. I want you to say
I said for doing your notes.
No.
I'm proud of you for
not just doing them, but sending them.
I'm proud of you
let's
for doing
be honest.
them and sending them
sometimes,
in a timely manner.
Sometimes my notes is like sliding in the third. It's like
home.
I mean home. That's what I mean. It's
a
home. It's
third would be what you did yesterday.
No, I think that's like second.
No, that's third.
You had them you had 24 hours.
That's third.
Man, please.
That's third.
Who can live up
if you had sent these notes on April 1st, that would have been first. If you sent them by the 5th, that was second.
Let me just
you
be
sent
honest.
them on the 8th, that's third.
Let me just be
Usually
honest.
you send them 2 hours before we go live.
Let me just be honest. If I send the notes on the 1st, we ain't gonna even talk about that on the 9th.
Right.
That's the truth. Because listen, by the time I don't work through that, I'm like, I have moved on to something else. I'm like, send them the notes because I'm not talking about that. Okay, so a little bit about how this started. We're about to get started. Hey, Carrie, it got started because I was thinking about how every time I have raised my personal standards, I have improved my life. So not just in a relationship context, right? That when I relate, it actually kind of started in Inner Circle talking about making more money. And then I was like, nothing really changed. It's not enough to want something more. It's not enough to talk about something more. And for faith people, it's not even enough to make declarations. You actually have to raise your personal standards. And for me, I raised my standards about what I required in my own life, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the thing, because raising our standards, it causes us to look for different options. Okay. So that's really how it got started for me. And then when I realized that we weren't going to have special guests this month, I was like, oh, okay, I can do it. Let's carry on the conversation, because raising our personal standards has actually changed our relationship in so many ways.
Yes, I agree.
I gave you notes so you can read that right now.
What do you want me to jump? You want me to just jump right into? I didn't know how. Usually when I do the notes, I kick it off. So I thought you wanted to kick it off tonight.
Was that not a kickoff?
It's not written here. Everything you say is not on this page.
Oh, it's like
that's considered a kickoff.
It's a preface.
Okay.
It's a preface. You got chapter 1. Go ahead.
Okay. And so tonight we're going to chat about how our individual decisions to raise our personal standards actually can improve our relationships. And basically, we're going to focus in 2 areas, is what we talked about.
Yes.
We're going to talk about how it can help with our spiritual growth. Okay. But also how raising your personal standard for yourself can actually improve your health. And when we say health, we're not just talking about your physical health. We are talking about your physical health, but also your mental health, your emotional health, and your whole entire self-being, right?
Absolutely. So, and we're really top there. You could have covered this in so many areas, right? But we're narrowing it down to two areas that I thought played the biggest difference in our relationship.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to define personal standards for you.
Okay.
For the record, that's why you should just do this. But here we go. Edward's gonna define personal standards for you.
How you write the notes and don't go by the notes. Let's talk about personal standards. Let's define it, because when you define something, it helps us to all be on the same page.
I'm gonna do my best to go by the notes the rest of the time. Okay.
All right. Personal standards are defined as the principles and values that individuals set up for themselves in order to guide their behaviors, right? To guide their decision making and achievements in various aspects of their life. So when we're talking about personal standards, we're talking about the core values, the principles that you yourself hold true for you as an individual. And then on top of that, how those core values, those principles that you hold dear, how they guide you in your behavior, in your decision making, and the achievements that you want to achieve in your life.
Yes, because I know that when some people heard me say that we were going to talk about personal standards, they thought that I was primarily focusing on what we require from other people. And that is a part of personal standards. But the truth of it is that a lot of times what we're getting from other people, it is because of it's because we don't have personal standards, right? So listen, often couples, friends, and family can base their decisions to grow and improve on those they love, right? So basically, I'm making a decision on what I can do based on what you do, right? And we act like we can't change unless the person we love changes, right? And so many times when we're counseling people, those people are talking about, that they can't stop cussing because the other person won't stop cussing, or they can't work out because the other person won't work out. And raising your personal standards is really just a journey about being responsible for yourself. So tonight we're going to talk about how we learn to raise our own personal standards individually, even when we had common goals, and how it has improved and continues to improve our relationship.
Yeah, because if you don't raise your own personal standard, what happens, even if you don't want to, you can find yourself getting yourself into the position of being a bully or being a manipulator. Because what happens is you want to get the other person to change. And if you want to get the other person to change, even if it comes from a good place, if you're doing that based on just because you want them to change rather than raising your own standard, you can unintentionally, I would say, sometimes become a bully or manipulator in the relationship. And I think a lot of people will go, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not a bully or I'm not a manipulator. But when you look at the definition of it, you may actually find that you fit into that category. Because I think everybody who's been in a relationship with anybody, and I don't just mean a romantic relationship, whether you've been friends with someone, whether you worked with someone, whether it was a family member, whether it was the love of your life, your spouse, we've all probably gotten into some of what could be defined as bullying or manipulating because we wanted the other person to change rather than us raising our level of personal standard and saying, here's what I require, and expecting other people to rise up to it.
I wonder if anybody else would admit that. Edwin, have you ever, as you look back, have you ever felt like that you were being a bully?
Sure, absolutely. And I think most people, if they're honest, they will, because we learn early on that what we call assertiveness is sometimes actually bullying. And if I think I'm being assertive, but I'm being a bully and I get my way, it reinforces that behavior. So I'm like, oh, when I get assertive, right, I get what I want. Well, then all I got to do is, now I'm in this relationship, and if the person isn't doing what I would like for them to do, or they're not behaving in a way that I want them to behave, rather than me raising my own personal standard to say, hey, this is how I'm going to respond in this situation, what I do is I begin to manipulate you into ways of doing things. And I think most people, if they're honest and self-reflective, can say, yeah, I've probably gotten into that. I've probably
We
done
got some
that.
people who admit it.
Yeah.
I mean, some women. We even
Mhm.
have. We got a man, Ralph, on here. He said April used to call me a bulldozer when I acted that way.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
It is. It's
And
that,
sometimes we do it, and it doesn't matter why you do it.
doesn't matter
Because
why.
watch this. I can do it from a place where I'm doing it for what I think is best for you. It's still bullying. It's still manipulation, because it's where that comes from, and it's the methodology for how I use to get you to change. And so, yeah, I think most people could probably say, "Man, I've done that before."
Well, and that's why you need to share this, because sometimes we're not even aware of the things that we're doing to other people. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned is that when I needed to bully, as you say, and when I needed to manipulate, it is literally out of fear.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a great example of something like that. I made a post about it today. I am one of those people that I grew up in a family that encouraged me that I could be amazing all the time. That's
Mhm.
just how I grew up, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, it is so easy to see people's potential. And then I pray a lot. So it's so easy to see people's potential. And I know that I have been guilty of, with my friends and people I love, really trying to push them what seems like pushing, right?
Mhm.
But it's actually bullying. But here's the truth. I'm really afraid of what happens to you if you don't change.
Mhm.
So when my friend is talking to me about not having enough money and being stressed out and having headaches because, they don't know what they're going to do, right? And then I'm trying to push them to get another job. It's really because I'm afraid. I don't want you to have a heart attack. I don't want you to have a stroke. I don't want your
Mhm.
life to fall. And so it can seem like a good thing, right? But it's still bullying. And
Mhm.
so it's one of the things that we started saying when we were walking, which people can feel like it's rude, but we don't mean it in a rude way, which is that one of the things I've had to own is that people have a right to make their own choices, even if they're stupid.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that. To me, it is very stupid that you would be struggling at a job and you would stay at that job because you like those people when you cannot build retirement and you're now in your 50s,
Yeah.
right? But you have the right to do that. So for me, I really had to learn that it's not just that you have the right to make your own choices when I agree with your choices,
Yeah.
which is why I say, even if they're stupid, you have a right to make your own choices, even if I disagree and they seem to harm you. Now, here's where personal standards come in. And I have the right to decide that I won't have another conversation with you about that until you're willing to do something
Mhm.
else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah, that's a great example of when we talk about raising your personal standard. You don't have to torment yourself by having the same repeated conversation,
Yes.
but you also don't have to become a manipulator or a bully in order to get the other person to do what you want them to do,
Yes.
even if what you think you want them to do is beneficial for them.
Absolutely.
And,
Even
and
if
that's something you have to grow up into.
yes.
You really have to. If you don't grow up into it, you will go into relationships and you really will be a bully of the relationship. And people can say, well, what's the big deal about being a bully or manipulating the relationship? Well, maybe nothing at first, but over time, the person you're in a relationship with will become to resent you.
They'll start to resent
And they
you.
won't resent you all at one time. They'll begin to resent you little by little. And then before you know it, they'll be doing the things that you want them to do. And you think everything is good. And then they ghost you. And then you won't know why they ghost you. You won't know why they didn't have the conversation.
That's good.
You won't know why they just stopped talking to you. Because I talk to people all the time and says, well, we were friends and then they just stopped talking to me. They didn't just stop talking to you. You just noticed when they stopped talking to you.
Mm.
Let me say that again. They didn't just stop. They didn't just stop. You just noticed it then because everything else about the conversation you'd been having with them in the relation, the behaviors was all about getting them to do what you wanted them to do. And as long as they were doing it, you didn't even hear how loud their silence was.
Mm.
So we have to make those changes.
Well, and that's such a good point. How many can see an opportunity to grow in this area? Because we try to have conversations that we think will be relevant to you, right? That will make a difference for you. And we try to get into some of the nitty gritty of the things that we don't always talk about. It's like it's saying the thing out loud, the silent thing, the thing that typically nobody says out loud. And it's really owning when I'm moving by fear. I remember one of the things that I started asking myself is that, do I really want them to change because it's better for them or because it's better for me?
Yeah.
Well, do I want, and that's why I had to raise my personal standards, because it's better for me if I'm not always in a crisis situation with you, right? But I have another option besides bullying you. The other option is to decide I'm simply not engaging anymore. I am simply not having that conversation
And
with
there's
you.
nothing wrong with having the conversation to say, we've talked about this before. And while I think what you're doing is detrimental to you, or I don't think it's a good thing, I don't think you're going down the right path, I respect your right to still make those decisions. But I cannot continue to have those conversations with you.
Ooh.
For instance, I respect the fact that you love sweets, not you, but that someone loves sweets.
Because I'm making better choices.
Right. But someone loves sweets, right? But I refuse to sit up with you while you are sick because you've been eating sweets. I'm not going to detract from my time or the things that I need to be working on or the things I need to get done because you are choosing to make these life decisions. I don't think they're good decisions. In fact, I think they're bad decisions. But you have the right to make these decisions, even if I think they're stupid. And even if the results cause you to be sick. I can love you and not strip myself of my time, my energy, my resources to be there while you are being detrimental to yourself. You can have that conversation, and it doesn't have to be rude. It doesn't have to be mean. It can just be just that. Because what does that mean? I am raising my level of personal standard. And when you raise your level of personal standard, you will be amazed at the number of people who rise up to that. As a school teacher, one of the things that we always said, and I always believed it, which is that children rise to the level of your expectation. It doesn't matter whether they're poor kids. It doesn't matter whether they're minority kids. It doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl. If you have high expectations for children, right, and that's infused with love, most children, unless there's absolutely some developmental delay that causes them not to, they rise to that standard. And even with a developmental delay, they rise above what most people say they could do that developmental level.
This is true. This is true.
And it happens in relationships, but you have to raise that expectation.
Yes, but you know what this is? This is really that grow up stuff.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that it shifts our attention from the other person to us, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I've spent so much time talking to you every time you ate too many sweets and your blood sugar went high and you had to be rushed to the emergency room. I spent so much time doing that and then having to call somebody else and be frustrated up at the hospital with so-and-so again. And I haven't looked at myself. I haven't looked at whether I'm a bully, whether I'm an enabler, what fear is driving this, right? And then here is the other thing that happens, because you talked about when you get bullied. When you get bullied, you can be resentful. But when I don't raise my personal standards, I'm resentful too.
Yeah.
And the resentment comes is that here we are again.
Yep.
Here we are again, and I got to help you not get evicted. Here we are again, and you calling me in the middle of the night because you and your boyfriend done had a fight and he done threw all your stuff out. And raising our personal standards really allows us to have healthier relationships. Now, that doesn't mean that up front, everybody likes it, right? Because here's what can happen is that in the case where you've been going to the hospital or you've been talking to somebody every time that they were stressed out about not having making enough money, they can feel like you're being mean.
Sure.
But I'm not being mean. I'm actually taking care of myself and I'm taking care of us.
Yeah.
Because if I don't raise my standards, we're going to have a breach.
Yeah.
We're going to end up breaking up.
And people often think that people are being rude when they are no longer doing whatever it is that benefits them. So you have to delineate between whether you're actually being rude or if you're raising your personal standard. They can look the same to both people. They can look the same. Both of those things can look the same to
That's a
someone.
really good comment. That's a really good point.
If I used to give you money because you were always mismanaging money, and I've told you 10 times I'm not going to give you money anymore, but every time you've got into a particular spot, and I don't want your kids to be impacted, so I bail you out. The first time I don't actually bail you out, you're going to think I'm very mean. You're going to think I'm rude. You're going to think I don't love you. All of these things, because you don't see it as me raising my level of personal standard. You see this as me not giving you what you want. And so people have to know that as you begin to, and I don't know another word to use, but as you begin to train people in your relationships about what your new personal level of standards are, you're going to have to give some grace to their consternation towards you, because they're going to be mad because you didn't do what you've done for me all these other times. Why are you changing now? You know, when I used to do something bad in the relationship, and then I would just tell you I was sorry, and that fixed it, and you would come back like you did last time. Why aren't you doing that this time? Well, because things have changed, and you'll have to give people a moment to grieve the old you and embrace the new you.
You got to give that. I think that's one of the things that you put in there. If anybody who's ready to level up, go ahead and put in the comments. I have to give people, how'd you say it?
You got to give people time to grieve the old
I have to give
me
people time to grieve the old me.
And embrace the new me.
And embrace, or not. Because that's one of the things you taught me.
But I have to give them the time. I give you the
not.
time. They can or not, but I give you the time to do it.
I give you the time.
I give you the time to do it.
Right. I have to give people the time in order to do it.
Yep.
So we want to talk about a couple of times. When we have done it individually and it actually changed our relationship. Because I think that one of the things that can be really challenging in a relationship is that when we have the same goal, we are often trying to make each other get here in the same way, right? So the first place that we really did it was spiritually, because we had the same goal. And the same goal was that we wanted to live and build a God-centered family.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we wanted. We had some expectations about what that looked like. We wanted a family. We wanted to create an atmosphere at our home where we valued what God said and where it showed up in how we engaged with each other, right? Because this is well before we have kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so well before we're pastors. And so we tried to implement it in the ways that other people recommended. Like everybody was like, oh, if you want to have a great relationship, you need to pray together. If you want to have a great relationship, you need to study together. And here's what would happen for us. We'd be trying to pray together, or we'd be trying to study together, and it just wouldn't hardly ever go well. And it wouldn't hardly ever go well because we're so different. It's so different how I pray, how I study, how you study. And so basically we were always trying to force ourselves into something that didn't fit for us, right?
Yep.
And so then we realized that we also had to make a decision individually. Did we want to grow? Because if we wanted to have a God-centered family, then we had to be willing to grow, which meant we had to trust each other to do what they were supposed to do separately, right? And we had to hold ourselves accountable to do what we needed to do separately.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things it couldn't be this idea of I was only going to do it because you either were going to ask me about it or we were going to get into it if I said I hadn't done it yet.
Right.
And so it couldn't be this thing that you were going to do it because I wanted you to do it or I was going to ask you about it. It had to be this thing that said, hey, you know what? I have my own level of personal commitment. Okay, as the husband and eventually as the father, I have my own personal responsibility and personal commitment to do my part to help create this Christ-centered life that we wanted, right? And I had to do that and I hate this word, but I'm gonna use it, irregardless.
Irregardless.
I had to do that irregardless of what you were doing, right? And I had to trust that you wanted the same thing I wanted, even if your means to getting it looked different.
Well, no. Run that one back.
I'm just, we had a common goal, and the common goal was to have a Christ-centered life. I didn't want to be the husband who went out and stayed out all night. I didn't want a wife who was a wife who went out and stayed all night. I didn't want a relationship where we was always fussing and cussing at each other. I didn't want the relationship where we had 10 good days and 21 bad days a month.
No.
I didn't want that. We wanted a Christ-centered relationship. But when we were young, trying to get advice from people, the advice they was giving us, it didn't work for us. I ain't saying it wouldn't work for everybody, but the times in which you like to pray was different than mine. The way you like to pray was different than mine. The way I like to study the Bible was different than yours. I was more of a subject matter person, and you were more expository. You like to link all the different stories together, while I was kind of doing things in a chronological order kind of way. And neither one of those are bad. But when I was trying to force you to do it, it put you in an uncomfortable situation. And when you were trying to force me to do it, it put me in an uncomfortable situation. And so we had to both learn to raise our personal level and say, hey, do you believe that this is what I want for this family? And you were like, do you believe this is what I want for this family? Yes. Then I trust you, and you trust me to do what's necessary in order for us to reach the same goal, even if we come about it a different way.
Well, and the other thing is that when we both really began to do that, we didn't have time really to police the other person.
Because what we started saying is, hey, I'm committed to this, even if you're not.
I'm committed even if you're not. Yeah. And let me say this, in marriage, now let me disclaim this. I'm not talking about being committed to somebody who's not committed to you. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being committed to somebody who don't come home at night. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I think it's so important for us to understand that many times when we are trying to make a change, we're out here trying to do what the world call match energy. And you're not going to change a relationship. You're not going to level up. You're not going to improve it matching energy, especially because at that time, my only real standard for whether you did it or not would have been that you did it my way. Yeah. And that would have been the same for you. So it still could have been like, oh, you ain't really studying. You ain't really praying. You're not really serious because you're not doing it my way. Right. And so we really had to learn to take responsibility for ourselves. This is the type of person I am going to be. This is the kind of woman I am going to be. This is who I believe you're going to be. I'm going to pray that the Lord talk to you, but I don't have time to police you. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we realize in relationships how often we're like policing people. And that is rooted to fear, right? Mm-hmm. We see it a lot in counseling.
Mm-hmm. And not just I know we seem to be harping a little bit on marital relationships, but this is true of all relationships though. As parents, we have authority over our children. But it's important that you don't show up in your kid's life as a bully. And it's important that you don't show up in their life as manipulators. That doesn't mean that you don't have family rules. It doesn't mean that you don't, you ain't saying you got to negotiate with your kids, because we're not negotiators. There are things that we try to walk them through and help them to understand at a younger age, because at some point they're not going to be in your house and they need to know how to make those decisions. They need to be able to decipher good and bad information and come up with the correct answer. But at the end of the day, we're not negotiators with our kids, but neither are we bullies. Children should be heard. I believe that children should be heard. We tell our kids all the time, there's a respectful way to say anything. But you have to make sure that you're not carrying over those tendencies to bully and manipulate, not just in a marriage, not just in a dating relationship, but even if you're the boss on the job. A lot of times people don't get the most out of their employees because they don't ever allow their employees to have any input, because they're afraid if their employees have input that somehow that's going to undermine who they are. And it's like, well, because here's the thing I used to tell people, here is the way I would do a project. But just because I would do it that way doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. And it doesn't mean it's the most effective way. Well, if you're the boss, you can jump into that thing. Well, this is the way I want you to do it because you're the authority figure. But that breeds resentment and contempt. And then what happens is when those downline employees who are supposed to be giving you good information, good ideas, they'll just withhold those because they become resentful. And so what we're talking about isn't just about marriage.
Well,
it's over so many different facets of so many different relationships.
Well, let me use an example between Kanan and I about this not bullying and not manipulating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kanan used to work for a dress shop and they did like homecoming and prom dresses and all of that different stuff. And Kanan has always wanted me to go with her to get her homecoming dress, to get her prom dress. She wants us to look at them before, all of that different stuff. And one of the things that she said to me is that I appreciate that you give me your feedback, but that you don't bully me because you ultimately are paying for it,
mm-hmm.
right? And she was saying the one thing that she noticed when she was dress shopping. So let me tell y'all, all y'all moms who got girls growing up, if you grew up in our age, the way they do prom dresses, the way they do homecoming is so different now. It's not we just running into JCPenney's and getting a dress. A lot of these places make you have a 2-hour appointment and you got to try on the dress months in advance and all of that different stuff. And so she said one of the things that she noticed is how stressful dress shopping was for so many of the girls. Because
she worked in a place
where
they sold those dresses.
And she was like, how many times a mama would say, not because the dress was too revealing, but because she simply didn't like the style. I won't get it if you don't, if I won't pay for it if you don't get what I want you to get, right? Things like I won't buy you this dress unless you have a date. And those things seem really, really simple. And a great thing is that the prom dress that Kanan wore last year, I was the one who liked that dress better. And I just said to her, I think it would look really good on you. Will you try it on? When she tried it on, because all the dresses she thought she wanted, she actually hated them when she put them on. I said, will you try it on? When she tried it on, she went and she walked out. Everybody just went, oh my God, that's it. She got the dress. The dress she picked this year, that's not necessarily the favorite dress that I saw her in, but she was like, this is the dress I want for my senior year. And because I wanted the experience to be fun for both of us, I don't have the right to insert myself in Kanan's senior prom and try to pick the dress that I would wear.
Yeah, and if you don't get rid of, and people don't see it that way, if you don't raise your own personal standard, what happens is it becomes I want you to wear this dress because I like it and I'm paying it. And so you do it. And then what happens is you end up creating, again, that resentment that we talked about, because now, first of all, you're not going to the prom. At most, you're going to be there to take some pictures and then get out of the way. It's not your night. It's not your night. And I think we have to realize that in other situations, it's not always our time. It's not always about us.
Absolutely, right? So that was an example that's about parenting, right? So the other thing is that one of the things we find when we're counseling and talking to couples is that many couples or many people in relationships have not decided as individuals to raise their standards, which is why they violate the goals. They violate the agreements that would get them to the goal. So if we have a goal that we're going to grow up spiritually, right? If I am willing to violate because I don't like how you handle something, right? If our goal is to have a peaceful home, I have to hold myself to a standard regardless to what you do. Yeah. And I think that that's a tough thing for a lot of people. Yeah. I think we really grew up into that. I think it's one of the beautiful things about getting married at 22, because in a lot of ways, I say this all the time, in a lot of ways, we kind of raised each other as we grew up, right? It was just like that we had to learn that I had to learn that my own personal standard is not cursing. My own personal standard is not being rude. My own personal standard is not holding grudges. And my own personal standard is not being argumentative, even when I think that Edwin is doing those things. Mm-hmm. Well, not anymore, because we don't have those.
But no, but I mean, we don't have them now, but we had a lot of them for a while, for a few years.
A lot.
And it took that revelation of learning how to raise our personal standard that basically says, look, at the end of the day, if I allow you to control my behavior, or if I allow you to control how I respond, then I am not in control. You are. And I had to raise my I had to raise my personal standard of no matter what, I'm in control. And the only way to do that was to say, I don't care if we're having a tough conversation. I don't care how heated it may get. If I'm going to raise my voice, I'm doing that because I'm not holding myself accountable, not because you made me. And people use that example, well, you made me talk to you like that, or you made me say that, or you made me do this, or you made me do that. And it's just not true. We have to hold ourselves accountable and say, at the end of the day, I am the person who makes the decision about what I do. Nobody makes me do it. And if someone is making me do it, it's because my personal standard is so low that they can pull my strings. They can push my button.
Wait, if somebody's making me do something without force, they don't have a gun, they not hold me hostage.
No, we're talking about
That-
somebody say something and you say
they
something
made you
outside
cuss
your
them out.
character.
They
Say you say something you said you wasn't gonna say no more. They make you behave in a way that you said you wasn't gonna behave anymore. They don't have a gun to your head. Their words or their attitude or the way they looked at you made you do it. Then your personal standard is so low that it can be dictated by somebody else.
Your personal is your friends. Is your personal standard so low that it can be dictated to by other people?
Because when I make the decision to raise my personal standards, what happens is I become responsible. I see myself as responsible for my own choices, regardless to what anybody else does. Because my personal standard is this, and I get to dictate whether I meet that standard or not somebody else.
How many of you just want to take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm gonna grow up a little bit? Like, it's not my kids made me mad. I'm not yelling because my kids are running late.
Mm-hmm.
I am yelling because I have not raised a personal standard that I don't yell.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, that's it. I'm not doing my best at work because other people aren't doing their best at work.
Right.
I'm not doing my best at work because I don't have a personal standard of being excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is such an important thing to realize, that I am responsible for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I spend less time trying to police other people and more time trying to manage myself, then I wouldn't have so many opportunities to say what somebody else made me do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right?
Yep.
And so this is just, what's your takeaway in this first section? Then we're going to talk about our newest one.
You know, my takeaway, which has been a takeaway that I've had for years, and that is that my behavior is not determined by anybody else. I can't blame, my behavior is not determined by anybody else. I cannot blame anyone for the way I behave. It is my personal responsibility.
Come on, y'all, put that in the comments. I cannot blame anyone for how I behave.
My behavior is mine.
My behavior is mine. And isn't it funny how we all want to be grown until it's time to manage our own our own choices?
Mm-hmm.
Baby, listen, we are so grown. Can't nobody tell us what to do. I'm a grown woman. You a grown man. But as soon as somebody starts pushing buttons, then now I'm not that grown. Now I'm going to be controlled by you.
I have to understand that I act based on who I say I am. I
act based on who I say I am.
So it's not that it's this idea of, oh, well, I'm not really, I hate when people say, well, that's not really who I am. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Because your behavior is an indication of who you are.
What it is that it's not who you are in pressure. So you think it's not who you are, but it actually is
who you are.
And here's a
because how we know what's inside of an orange if you never put pressure on it?
You put pressure on it and you squeeze it.
And then what comes out of it? Orange
juice.
Because that's what's in the orange.
And I think for me, one of the big things, and I think you will say this about me, is that I used to be a very argumentative person. I have a law degree. I used to be very, very argumentative. Baby, I could argue over anything at the drop of a hat. And the truth of it is that I got a certain amount of enjoyment out of sparring verbally. And I remember when I decided I didn't want to be that person anymore. And like over the years, even some of you who followed me 10 years ago on Facebook, you'll see that there's moments where somebody would say something that the old Sean Strickland would engage and go back and forth. I'll be like, oh, okay. Why? It's not that I am afraid to banty reproaches. It's not because I have lost that skill. I have simply decided that is no longer how I choose to spend my time. Right. I don't have any time to waste arguing with people. We're either going to have a civilized discussion where we're going to articulate different points, right? Or we are going to not have the conversation, because the other thing too is that when we get into that, for me, not for everybody, but when we get into what I consider that low level arguing, then it becomes very much high school to me, where literally you can say anything for the point of winning. And that's just not who I want to be. Yeah. So I just don't do that anymore.
You know, it's funny because since you said that, I'm not piling on, I'm simply saying that I had to raise my own personal standard, because when you were in that state, I used to say you were making me mad. You're making me mad doing that. When you act like that, you're making me mad. When then the reality of it is that I had to deal with my own issues for why I let things upset me. And then once I got to the place where I have worked on not allowing external things to cause me to respond in a way that's outside of my character, who I say I am, then what happens now is sometimes I'll do that, and you and other people will ask me, is something wrong? Or you'll ask me, you'll be like, you're just saying that to get me to be quiet. And it's like, no, I'm actually understanding that you have the right to think the way you think, even if I don't think that way, and I don't have the right to change it, because you have the right to think that way. But in the past, if I thought somebody was doing something as simple as this, putting the way you put the dishes in the dishwasher, I don't personally think that's the way. I don't personally think that's the way they should go in the dishwasher.
Somebody's a little judgy, but hey.
But you know what? If I'm not going to do the dishes and you're going to do it, you have the right to put them in there the way that you think they will go. Now, obviously, if something happens and something didn't get cleaned, then I would say something. But you put them in there and they get clean. It's just not the way I would do it. The way I literally wash the clothes and fold the clothes because I like them done a particular way. But if I get lax and don't do it and you go to wash, I don't now say something to you about it. I used to would say something. I'd be like, hey, why'd you wash all the black clothes, but you left these 2 or 3 black things in there? Well, because you don't take the whole laundry basket and dump the whole thing out and separate them in different things. You just kind of get them out and go wash them, which is nothing wrong with that. No, hold on.
Because they're about to see it in real time.
Hold on.
No, keep going. They're about to see it in real time.
That is perfectly fine. My point is, in saying that, is that we all have to raise our personal standard. And it's like, hey, I understand I can't control Sean and how Sean do it the way I would do it. If that's the case, I should do it. That's all I was trying to say.
No, I understand what you're saying. And I'm saying I used to feel some kind of way when you would do that, right? I used to feel some kind of way. And now the way I don't care nothing about that, I'm like, listen, I came in here to wash these dishes and I'm going to do some things in here that you don't always do. So so listen, go back in there and watch Family Feud. Right. Like literally, there are so many things that we used to butt heads about that now one of our things is that one of us will say something crazy to the other one. We just look at each other sometimes and start laughing. Like, chap, what I'm not finna do is this with you today. Because what we gonna do is have a good day.
That's right.
And that's but that
came from our own individual decisions to raise our own personal standard, to not allow any external forces to push our buttons, to cause us to behave in a way that is outside of who we have said we are.
Because I think that this is very important. And when you're married to somebody who is so different to you, I think it's really, really important. And then we'll talk about health and we'll wrap up. The truth of it is that most of the time, even when I do my best, it wouldn't be to your standard. Now, let me say this. My grandma taught me how to clean. So if we start really cleaning up, I can clean up like that. But we don't you're so detailed on everything you do. And I have just had to understand, for the most part, on everything, I'm not that detailed and I'm not wired that way. Is it clean? Is it put up where it's supposed to be? All right.
And what I had to learn was that, and I think we both had to learn it. You had to learn that my attention to detail was not a slight at your inattention to detail on certain things. And I had to learn that your inattention to details wasn't a slight to me personally. And I think by raising our own personal standards, we've understood that. And that's how we've grown this relationship. Well, the same thing is true as how you grow other relationships. You come into that revelation and understanding that even if it's your best friend, it doesn't mean y'all are the exact same. Even if it's your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister,
That's
your
so
aunt
good.
or your uncle, it doesn't mean you're the same. If it's your kids, we got 5 kids, and those 5 kids are all so different, even though they are all so much alike in some ways. In understanding that, there was a conversation that you had to have with one of our sons the other day, and it was beautiful because typically in that situation, I would be embracing myself for the way you and him were about to have this particular conversation about this particular thing. But you didn't. The way you had the conversation, you even said, hey, look, I know how I would normally do this, but I'm not going to do this time. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's my expectation. Are we good? And then they took responsibility, which was really good. They were very mature about it, said it won't happen again, blah, 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 and things were good. But that conversation 7 years ago, if he was that age and you were this age 7 years ago, that's not how that conversation would have went.
No, it's real talk. But let me tell you where I have really raised my personal standard to, right? I'm going to have a good day every day.
Yeah.
No, that is really my personal standard.
It's a good
I may
standard
have
to
a
have.
bad moment. I may have a bad hour, but and I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know if it's just because I'm over 50, right? But I am so aware of that I don't have as much time as I started with.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, I'm out here trying to fulfill my destiny, live my best life, and have an amazing day. And so at the end of the day, if something that someone is doing is not detrimental to me, I'm like, do I actually have to have this engagement in it? Right? No, I don't have to have this level of engagement. He said he understood what I said. Bet that up. I don't have to have this conversation no more. I said, I said, I normally fuss about this, but ain't nothing else to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up both having a good day, right? Now, this leads us into my raised personal standard that I'm going to have a good day and that I'm going to maximize the rest of my life, right? That is my global standard. I'm going to have a good day and I'm going to maximize the rest of my life. Now, that means we had to do this right here, health standards.
Mm-hmm.
We had to raise our health standards, right? So we started talking because you used to travel a lot. We had all these kids. We hardly ever have any time alone. So we started dreaming about what life would be like when all of our kids graduated. Now, here's a couple things. Number one, at that point, we were old enough to realize that a lot of people, when their last kid graduated, were getting divorced.
Yeah, because at one point, we were the young couple.
We were the young
amongst
couple.
the couples because we had a span of children. When Taylor was younger, that we were the younger parents.
We were the younger parents. So we got to learn a lot from being the younger parents.
And now that Kanan is our child who's about to graduate, we're some of the older parents. So we've been through that cycle.
So we've been through that cycle. And one of the things we started to really notice in our neighborhood, in our friend group, that as people's kids graduated, that they were getting divorced. So we had a very honest conversation. We don't want to get divorced when our kids are divorced.
When
our kids grow up.
We didn't want to realize we had nothing in common.
That we had nothing in common, that all of our stuff was about the activities we did with our kids. And so we started with something small. We started having a date night where at the date night, we could not talk about kids or ministry.
Right.
And we had to go back old school for some of y'all who need to do this. We went old school. We started pulling up questions to ask on the first date. We were going on dates. We had been married 18 years or whatever at the time, 20 years at the time. And we were like, we're going on these dates. You cannot talk about the kids. You cannot talk about the church. You cannot talk about anybody's problem. Because the thing is that in the nature of our work, because we pastor together and we're parent together, it is very easy to spend a day just talking about other people.
Well, and some days we didn't have but 48 hours. I came home on a Friday night and had to leave sometime on a Sunday night.
So that hour that we had,
that was very important for us.
And so then we started thinking about the places we wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started being like, but how do we want to go there, right? Not just monetarily, how do we want to travel? We started looking at as we got older, like, do you want to be the people? Do you want to be the people at Disney World who can't walk all over Disney World because you're too heavy, because you haven't taken care of your body? Now, here's the thing. We pray that God will keep us safe from accidents and injuries and anything that would derail us. But we also had to take some responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We began to make small changes. All of our changes were not at once, right? And in fact, if you look back, you can see, if you look at our pictures, you can see a time when we was really into it, and then a time when we were really out of it, right? And this is all about raising personal standards, because our struggle in why we do what we do with food is actually a little different. You want to talk about yours?
Well, so for me, what I realized for me personally is that I had a habit of doing really good once daylight savings time kind of kicked in. With the length of days, because especially during that time, I spent a lot of my daytime in a building, in a school building, in a meeting, in offices. I was eating on the go so many times, or not eating at all, and then eating one big meal late at night while I was working on some report before I laid down and have to get up early and start the next day. When daylight savings time ended, I was going to work when it was dark. I was getting off when it was dark. And for me, that was, for lack of a better word, depressing.
That's good.
It was depressing to me. I didn't feel motivated. I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to go into the gym. I couldn't ride my bike. I couldn't walk. And so when I was bored, I ate. And so for me, that is how I ended up neglecting my health in many ways. And what happened is I had to raise my own personal standard and say, you cannot allow wintertime, which comes every year, to be a derailing factor in your life. And I had to quit blaming daylight savings time. I had to quit blaming that it got dark. And I had to raise my personal standard and say that at some point, these kids are going to be gone. This life that we've dreamed about is never going to be a reality if I let winter stop me every year. Because winter comes every year. At least in Arkansas.
Now, mine was a little different. I really just struggled to put it all together. I typically was either eating right or not moving, or I was eating crap and working out hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You can't outwork a bad diet.
And baby, let me tell y'all something. I want to tell y'all a secret. If you could outwork a bad diet, I'd have done proved it by now. Because baby, who would try to outwork a bad diet? Sean Strickland, right? And then I used food as a reward. And it took me a while to realize this, of how often, if I was talking to somebody in our church or one of our clients, or somebody was going through something stressful, that I was rewarding myself with food. It would be like, baby, I deserve this ice cream. Baby, the way I done worked them through this stuff, the way I done been on this phone all this different time. And so I had to raise my standards, and I had to raise my standards regardless of yours. And I really want to say this. I think that when you're married, so much of your marriage can be around fellowship, can be like food. Okay. Like, we're going to go out to dinner. We're going to go get dessert. And we used to do this thing where for a date, we would go to one restaurant for an appetizer. We would go to another restaurant for the main course. And we go to the last restaurant for the dinner.
We call it restaurant hopping.
Restaurant hopping. Ain't nothing wrong with that, except we was eating full food every place. We wasn't getting no samplers. We was eating full food. And so one of the things that I had to do was I had to stop giving myself permission to modify how I knew I should eat because of what you were eating.
Yeah, and I think the same is true. There are times that I would be saying, okay, I'm going to eat right, and I'd be doing good. And then I would see you watching the movie. We go, because I love going to movies, and you do too, certain movies. And then you would go to the movies with me, and I'd be like, I'm not going to even eat any popcorn or eat any of those Raisinets or drink that Coke. And I'd be like, baby, you getting something? You go, I know I ain't coming to no movie without eating no popcorn. And then,
why when you talk like me, you always got to try to mock me?
And then,
I don't even talk like that, dude.
Then you would get popcorn and Raisinets and a Coke and a pretzel or something. I'd be like,
not no pretzel, man. You doing too much.
I said, or whatever you would get.
Popcorn, a soda, and either peanut and M&Ms or Raisinets. If you go tell my story, tell it right. Don't add no stuff.
And maybe a hot dog. No, you never got hot dog or fries.
Huh?
You never got hot dog.
Not at the same time, String.
Anyway, she would get stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that smells so good." And then and I'm not supposed to be eating it, and I'd be like, I'm gonna eat some of that. You'd be like, you better get you some, and you get it. And so, but that wasn't your fault.
No, because
that was me. I didn't raise my own personal standard to say I'm not eating that stuff this time.
Wait, and here's the thing, because nobody will help you blow your goals like people you love.
Absolutely.
You better hear what I just said.
Absolutely.
There is nobody that will help you blow your goals like the people you love, because it's the people you love who say, "Go on, you need to get you a little popcorn." It's the people you love to say, "Girl, you ain't got to walk today." It's the
or somebody you say, "You know what? I'm not eating pizza," and they order a thin crust pizza and be like, "Oh, this is so crispy and good." It's like, oh my gosh. So hey, or when you said you wouldn't, I remember there was a time when you was like not eating potatoes or something, and I go to McDonald's at 9:00 at night and get a basket of fries and come home and put ketchup and salt on them and be eating them. And before I know it, you done reached over there and got you a couple. Why? Nobody will help you blow your goals like the person you love.
And so that is why we all have to raise our own personal standards. Yes. I just want to know, does anybody have a commitment to raising their own personal standards, right? And so we really have. This is actually the longest time, right, that we have gone with just walking out our individual goals, right?
I think the other thing too is that this time we really talked about this not being something to lose weight. This time around was about creating a sustainable lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so what could we do? You know, it's not about going to the gym and working out for 3 hours a day for 4 months, because we're not going to do that same thing all the time. And so it was like, what can we do that is actually sustainable? And this was the first time I can tell you in years that I haven't gained weight through the summer months. Through the winter months, because usually I could.
You did really good.
I could lose some of it, but I didn't. In the past, I didn't even lose as much in the summer as I was gaining in the winter. And you do that 3 or 4 or 5 years. You gaining 20 pounds every year, then before you know it, you're up 100 pounds, and you don't wonder you wonder why you're approaching 300 pounds in the last 5 years, and it just creeps up on you, you know.
And I think that's so important, and so and I think this is so important because I think couples sometimes struggle with this. We love each other and we have a similar goal, but that doesn't mean we have to work out together. Just like it doesn't mean we have to sit down and do all our Bible studies together. And I think that sometimes couples get into this thing, I need you to do it with me. And like you out here, we were walking the other day because I asked you to walk with me and I was ready to go home. And we were coming up on this thing and you said, if you go left, it's going to take us it'll be 5 miles by the time we get home. And if you go right, it's going to be 4 miles. And I said, well, when we get up here, I'm going to be going right because 4 miles is all I got today. And then I said, oh, I'm tired of walking. And then you said what?
I said, if you're really tired, all we have to do is run home. If we run home, we'll get there faster and this will be over. And that's how you looked at me. I was like, we could just run home.
You could be urgent care. You could be urgent care. Because I'm not going to be out here running. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't ever run when you asked me to. Right. Because I have. But that day, I knew I was not about to try to run a mile home. And I think we have to give ourselves that part of raising our personal standards is that we're not bowing to what other people think we should be doing, right, when that's not the best thing for us.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we do want to say this because a lot of y'all is getting old too. If y'all don't know this, the truth of it is that, and then we wrapping up, is that how you're eating today is determining what kind of quality of life you're going to have in 20 years.
Absolutely.
And I know people don't like to have this conversation, but even right now, if somebody chooses to allow their diabetes not to be checked and they end up having a leg amputated, an arm amputated, whatever the case may be,
going blind,
that is a modification that doesn't just affect them.
Right.
And I think that one of our big things is that we want to live long and strong, but we want to control the narrative as much as we can in the quality of what our 70s and 80s
Absolutely.
and 90s look like, right?
Absolutely.
For us, one of our very big things is that it is important that we maintain our independence as long as we can.
Absolutely.
Can we maintain our independence if we start having heart attacks at 50? We start having strokes. We start having diabetes. We're going to minimize our ability to have our freedom.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is that you have kids that aren't able to go live their dreams because they're trying to take care of you, right?
Yep.
Or the couple, we can't travel because one of us has mistreated our body so bad that we can't. And I'm saying that if we really think about how we want to live the next 20, 30 years of our lives, are our personal standards going to get us there? Because sometimes what happens in the body of Christ is we have so many people who are still trying to do, and I'm going to say it, dumb stuff, like you can pray calories out of food. Like that, because the Bible says that exercise profited little, that it doesn't profit anything. And so we really want to challenge you to really, especially guys, the younger you are, the earlier that you should start this. Man, I wish we had started this. We're just going to skip to the questions. There was one question that somebody asked, and we want to give that question. And then I'm going to ask you because I had already seen the question. So I'm going to ask you.
You know, and I do want to say this. One of the things that I think really did, at least for me, start to change just my outlook. You know, when you're 20 and when you're 30, maybe even when you're 40, you can almost feel invincible because the people collectively around you who are your age are typically not passing away unless they're involved in an accident, some crime is committed against them, or they had some rare, disease, they had cancer or something like that. But as you begin to get older in your 50s, and I thought about what Karen said in her comment there, man, the number of classmates I had, because we have a Facebook group for our class of 1990, the number of times I saw someone in those groups who passed away because they had kidney failure. Because they had liver damage because they had been drinking, they had diabetes, and they ended up losing their limbs or something. These are people who are my age. They had heart attacks. One person passed away because they had things called emphysema from smoking. I was like, whoa, these are lifestyle diseases. These are not diseases that is a result of genetics. But these are lifestyle diseases. People who literally, are severely overweight now, and as a result, they have all these issues. When you start to see your classmates leaving the earth, and it's because of these lifestyle diseases, you start to go, wait a minute, I got to change something. At least for me.
So we want to challenge those of you who need to. If you think, what do you want to be able to do with your grandkids? What do you want to be? Do you want to see your great grandkids? You can get to be 80 a lot of ways. But one of the things for me, and I think this is something we have in common, we don't really want our kids telling us what to do, especially Kanan, just to be clear, because I want to be clear. Kanan is so much like Edwin. I do not want Kanan running my life. And I actually think about that a lot. I go, I don't want these kids telling me what to do. I don't want these kids telling me that I got to come and live with them because I have not taken care of myself and I cannot live. That's not what I'm interested in. So the 52-year-old Sean is making decisions that allow 82-year-old Sean to maintain her independence.
Yeah.
Because you really get to choose. We can go out here on the internet
That's
right
true.
now and you can see people and they'll be like, so-and-so is 80. She don't even look 80. This man, what was the dude name? We just saw
He's an actor. I forget
the
his name.
actor in Ghostbusters.
He's like 78.
He's 78. And when you looked at him compared to the other actors that was in Ghostbusters,
who were younger than him.
They were younger than him.
Yeah.
You could really see that how you live matters. Everything is seed time and harvest.
Yeah.
And so
everything we sow, we get to reap.
Everything we sow, we get to reap. So we
sow
want
the
to
right
encourage
seeds.
y'all to raise y'all personal standards in how you take care of yourself, which also means raising your personal standards and not giving away so much of your time that there is no time to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
But we did have one question. We'll see if anybody else. We're finishing in 90 minutes tonight. Since your spouse's decisions impact you, how do you resist the urge to fuss or be resentful if they refuse to raise their personal standards?
That's a tough one. And I say it's a tough one because when you love somebody and you know that they are doing something detrimental to themselves, if you don't fuss, it's easy to be resentful because they're not changing.
Mm.
But if you fuss, that more than likely doesn't have the implication to cause them to change. So for me, the thing I had to learn to do, and we have somebody in our life who this kind of happened to. One of the spouses wasn't doing something to take care of themselves, and the other spouse was really afraid. It didn't show up that way, but they were really afraid that the other spouse was going to do something to harm themselves or cause themselves to be sick or in the hospital or not on the earth. And so they got real fussy. But in doing so much of the fussing, the other person became resentful and did more of what were they doing to harm themselves.
Jesus, ain't this life?
But
My
then
God.
they got so aggravated, they stopped saying anything. But then taking away the conversation, the affection, and all of the other things didn't help the person to change. And so when I hear the question, since your spouse's decision impacts you, and let's be honest, my decision impacts you.
Absolutely.
It impacts you. If I go out here and drive drunk, that impacts you. If I go out here and I eat so much that I end up getting sick, it impacts you. If I don't make good life decisions, good financial decisions, it impacts you. So yes, it is true that a spouse's decision can impact you. The question is, how do you resist the urge to fuss or be resentful if they refuse to raise their personal standards, especially about an area that's involved in their life that's causing them pain or causing you pain? And one of the things I could really say is that you have to be able to, and I don't know about anybody else, and I'm a pastor, so you just have to accept it for what it is. You have to be able to give this to God. And what I mean by that is there have been times that I know for a fact that there are things I wanted you to change, and I had talked to you about them, and you didn't change. And so I knew you needed to change them, so I went to God and talked to God about it. And what I said to God was, God, you created her, you made her. If the thing she is doing is harmful, and I believe it is, Lord, you change her heart. Because there are some things that we can't change. There are some things we can't get other people to do. And I'm not talking about and you never knew it. And I ain't talking about the kind of prayer where people go, you run in the room while they sleep and you throwing oil on them, talking about I'm changing you. No. You go in your prayer time. And it's not this manipulative kind of thing. It's like, God, if the thing she's doing is not harming her and I'm wrong, then you show me, correct me. But if the thing that she's doing, I believe is detrimental to her and to her lifestyle, her business, her friendships, God, here's the thing I'm asking you to change in her heart. And then you have to trust God enough that he loves you enough that he has the ability to change people's hearts. He did it to Pharaoh. He changed the heart of Pharaoh. In fact, he changed Pharaoh's heart to let the people go and then changed Pharaoh's heart back to chase him again. So if God can change the king's heart, he can change the heart of a man or a woman. And so for me, what in these situations, you have to raise your own personal standard, be able to love the person enough to say, even if they're making these bad decisions, it's their right to make it. But because I love them, I'm going to pray for them.
Yes.
You may have something else.
No, I do have something, and I love what you said, because this is what I think. I think that wives are more likely to be fussy and controlling about decisions than men are. I think for the most part that when men are healthy,
I think because men are more and I don't mean everybody, but I think in general terms, men are more analytical and women are more emotional. And emotional is not a bad thing. It's not a bad word. I think women are more in touch with their feelings than men are. I said today on a Facebook post, I said, if you ask a man how he feels, he's typically going to tell you what he thinks. If you ask a woman what she thinks, she's going to typically tell you how she feels. It's just how we are wired.
Yes. So with that being said, here is a way that you really help me. It's two things. Me and Kim Dennis, we about once a year we go on a challenge. I have to remember, you are not my child.
I am not.
You are not my child.
And a lot of women see their spouses as their children.
You're not my child. You are grown. You are a grown man.
It's a dangerous thing.
But the other thing is that I remember this. You were eating something. I was super concerned because you were eating a lot of them. I don't remember what it was. Oh, I think it's before we knew that broccoli gave you such bad heartburn, and so I was fussing at you because you was having a lot of heartburn. I
don't know. I remember. I don't think it was broccoli. It was something I really enjoyed.
Was it them things from Brahms?
I don't know, but if it's the thing I'm thinking about, when you said something about me getting sick.
No. Baby,
let me tell you. I don't know what the thing was, but I remember what I told you.
So I'm trying to talk to him, and I'm like, babe, you're eating that every day, and I'm concerned about you, and like sometimes it makes your stomach hurt, and I want you to be here with me. And I had got on your last nerves because
you had said it, and I
had said it every day, probably for like a week.
And I had said like, okay, I hear you, I get it.
But
I didn't say I was going to change or I wasn't going to stop.
Wait, hold on, people.
I said,
this
okay,
I hear you. This is a very key thing in relationships. This is something we had to learn.
Yes.
Just because somebody said they heard you, you cannot equate I heard you to I'm going to do something
because
about it.
I was very clear that I said, I hear you. You are right. I even think I said I should do better.
That's what you said.
I should do better.
Oh, but that seventh day when I said something to you, I'll never forget this. We was changing the sheets on the bed.
We were.
And you looked at me.
And I had enough.
You had talking enough. To me. Say it how you said it.
No, you tell it.
No, say how you said it.
No, you go ahead. You tell them.
You said, Sean, if I die, I die. And I left you some money, and then you can go spend it how you want to and get some therapy.
I said you can go to the beach and get therapy. Quit talking to me.
You said no, you don't. No, you didn't.
Okay.
You said, but leave me alone about what I'm eating. And at that moment, I had to say, Edwin got the right to die if he wants to.
Yes.
And I think that that's the thing most people haven't done in their relationships. Edwin has the right to. If Edwin wants to eat and prematurely die, he has the right to do that.
And in reality, I think I kept eating them because I was like, you ain't my mama. You can't keep telling me what I can and can't eat. I know I shouldn't eat it, but I'm tired of every time I eat it, you got something to say. And when you stop talking to me about it, I stopped eating it. That ain't right. I'm just telling you how it was.
No, but I think that that's really important. And so even now we'll say something to each other, even on this plan that we're on now. And one of us will say, hey, you said that you weren't going to do it. No, he did want them, AB. You can't help it.
Yeah, I wanted them.
He wanted it.
I wanted it. And I wanted her to stop talking to me about them.
Yes. But I think the other thing too is that you would eat stuff, and Crystal brought this up. A great example is the pork chop story. Mm. When my grandma was alive and you used to eat pork, my grandma would cook them pork chops for you. On the way driving down, I would say, Strick, please do not eat those pork chops, right?
You would say don't eat so many.
Don't eat so many of those pork chops. And you would say, all right, Sean, all I'm going to have is 2. And what would happen when you get in there?
I would eat 2.
And then what would happen?
I eat another 2.
And then what would happen?
I eat the last 2.
And then what would happen?
I would be sick.
And then when you would be sick, you would be like, oh, Sean, I feel so bad. Oh, Sean.
I felt like Pookie on New Jack City. I was like, the pork chop, they be calling.
No. And I remember one time we was at my grandma's house and you was like, I know we supposed to go see your friends, but I just want you to lay here with me. And that's what I mean when the fear starts driving us, right? I'm trying to police you because I want to go. And I remember that last time I told you, I said, if you go down here and you eat them pork chops
And you get sick.
and you get sick, you and mama better work it out however y'all want to. I'm going to hang out with my friends.
And I went down there. I ate them pork chops.
You were sick as a dog.
And I got sick. And Miss
And I said, I love you.
Miss Johnson told you to stay there with me.
And I
you
said,
said,
no.
Mama, I love it, but I'm
Mama,
going to see my friend.
I'm going to see my friends.
And she left me. I was on the couch. My stomach was hurting so bad. But even my stomach was hurting. I was thinking, I'm going to eat that last pork chop in there, though.
No. No.
As soon as I feel better. And people have the right to make those decisions.
But I think that's the thing we have to own. It's a scripture, but the Bible says perfect love casts out fear. Carrie said you needed to get
you
left.
right, Carrie.
Right.
I did.
Right.
I deserve to get left.
But I think that what happens is that if we're not careful, we embed fear and love as the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, because I don't want you to be sick, I don't want you to die early, I don't like when you feel bad, I think that gives me the right to police you.
Yeah.
And I only have the right to police myself.
Yeah.
So I had to say, today, Edwin gets the right to choose. I get the right to choose regardless to what Edwin chooses. And the truth of it is, I do not want you to die prematurely, but I have committed to do everything I can to live a full life. Yeah. And if a year from now you decide you going back to living however you live, will I be disappointed? Yes, but I won't kill myself, hurt myself, or ruin whatever time we got together left by trying to police you.
Well, we know that because even this is the second time that people in your community has done what I believe y'all call Prosper Well.
Oh, yes. Hey, listen, if you want to join Prosper Well, man or woman, you can join the community. No, put the link up, somebody. Crystal, I know you out there. Go ahead. Hold on.
Okay.
So it's the way I can't hardly stand you sometimes. Pray my strength.
So there was the first time that I believe your community participated in Prosper Well. There were lots of people who joined in Prosper Well, and they discovered for the first time what their body feels like when they eat differently, right? When they get off of certain sugars, when they get off of certain products like dairy
yes.
or meat or gluten or sugars and all these things. And there are people who literally said out of their own mouth, when I stopped eating X, Y, and Z, I noticed I had A, more energy. I noticed B, I didn't have headaches. I noticed C, I didn't have this inflammation. D, I wasn't as cranky. All these things, right? But then because Prosper Well ended, they went back to doing what they was doing before.
Because they didn't
they didn't raise their own personal standard.
They had a community standard.
Yes.
And when the community wasn't doing it, they went back.
And then they like, oh my God, my headaches are back. My inflammation is back. Well, you don't see that that's directly tied to what you're putting in your body. You know, there's this saying, garbage in, garbage out. So if you are putting the wrong thing in your body, the wrong thing in your mind, you know, if you're matching energy, that's garbage in. What's going to come out? Garbage. You eating processed food, 9 meals a day. What's going to come out? Garbage. And so it's important to understand that when we talk about raising these personal standards, it is for you, but it's also for the people you're in relationship with.
Yes. So does anybody have any questions? And what's one area that you're committed to raising your personal standards? Because
it's why people will fast when the church is fasting, but they have no commitment to their own personal fasting time.
Well, this is
because it's a community standard,
it's
not
a community standard, right? Or it's a marriage standard. I'm doing this because you're doing it. No, I'm doing this because I want the John 10 and 10 life.
I can't tell you how many times Edwin and Sean Strickland have had the conversation with each other going both ways, where it's like, hey, I'm committed to doing this. Will you do so-and-so with me? No. If you want to do that, you make the commitment to do it. And if I want to come along and do it with you, sometimes I will, but do not make a commitment to eat a certain way or do a certain thing because I am committed. You have to be committed to it.
Because baby, when we started Prosper Well this time, and he said no meat, and I said yeah. He said, well, I'll see you on the other end. But I've decided I don't eat meat anymore, right?
And I've decided that I go off meat at certain periods of time. This wasn't one of the times. My time of eating meat did not align with Prosper Well. That's not to say I'm not prospering well. I'm not prospering there well.
All right. So does anybody have any questions? And who is going to tell us an area that you are committed to raise your personal standards? Again, you can't fix all of it at once. I'm gonna tell you, don't stress yourself out trying to fix your money, your relationship, your mind,
changes.
all that stuff. Don't do it because you're gonna quit.
Yep. Small incremental changes is the way to go.
But let me tell you something too. One of the things that has really helped me this time is that this time, meaning August 11th when I started, not that I have been perfect, but every week I am watching videos and reading articles that remind me why I started to begin with.
You're feeding your mind.
I'm feeding my mind, right? Child, why can't you say that?
Because that looked like your name.
Well, how come I can't say somebody's name? It's my name. LaShonda. I am committed to making it my personal standard to have a good day every day and to do the work to figure out my mental process to get there. So we have go to shiftwithshawn.com. I have a product a class I taught with Chandra. It's called the 5 Hacks. And it's things that you do every day in order to, it's like setting your intention, making sure you drink enough water, making sure you dump your day. And it's a teaching and it's a book. And I think it's a great tool, right? Kim says, I'm eating better, no Red Bull for 3 weeks now. I have decided there will be no Red Bull ever. It's a drug for me. And that's the maturity.
Yeah.
That's the maturity. Yeah. To say, you know what? I'm not doing that because that's not good for me.
People laugh at me sometimes because when I am deciding I'm not going to eat something, and Pastor Sean have seen me do this, if my body starts to crave it so bad, I will tell my body it can't have it for a year. I went without eating beef for a year. If I start to crave something, and I feel like I just got to give into it, I will break my flesh and I will not have it for a year. And by the time you haven't had something for a year, you don't even miss it anymore.
This is true. Duke said 2 workouts a day is a personal standard I have set for myself. I love that because our standards don't have to be. Right now, I am currently, as of April 1st, I am on a no processed sugar dessert for a year.
Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't mean I can't have a dessert. If it's modified, it means that no white sugar desserts for a year. Because I need to do that thing with my body where it's like, nope, you're not the boss of me and you don't get to run me.
Yep.
Right? Do you mean you screamed at your body for a week?
That's what she was saying. When she was drinking the Red Bull, she screamed at her body for a week. You're not having no Red Bull.
No, absolutely. And then Miss Cynthia said she got all sweet and low, as you should.
Yeah.
Tiffany said prospering well is no longer just a community standard, but it is a personal standard, right?
There you go.
So I want to see some other people because we still got 92 of y'all hanging around. Pastor Creek about to give what's happening next month. But listen, I need to see what those personal standards are because I'll be following y'all on social media because I want to be able to say, is your standarding? Now, if you read my post today, you know that I'm not wrestling no alligators. I'm not gonna be fighting you, right? Crystal says she raised her standards and didn't eat gummy bears, Skittles, and M&Ms all last year. It's been worth it. But this is the truth. Crystal, when we first talked about the very first time we did a fast or something, and she gave up gummy bears, she actually cried. And she was like, that's how she knew she needed to give them up because she got so upset at the thought of giving them up. And she was like, I don't need to feel this way about no food.
I think I might would feel that way about ice cream, but I'm not going to say that because I'm not going to give up ice cream. I'm going to train myself.
Lemoyne said she cried real tears. And then
that's an attachment right there.
And then she went out there and set them on fire and they didn't burn.
Oh, Lord. That'll help you not to eat them.
And then she said that when they didn't burn, she went, now, if they won't burn with fire, what am I actually putting in my body?
That's true. That's a good point. Ice cream will burn.
Crystal, everybody knows you cry. You done cried so many places. I don't know why you think it's a secret that you cry. Okay, so who else we got who raising standards? Because I need to know. And then Strick, you can. Thank you for doing this with me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
For the record, though, according to my personal standards, getting you them notes yesterday, high up,
It's high up.
high up.
High up. And that's what's important, to reach your own personal standards.
Wow, you so shady.
Reach your own personal standards.
Shantae says that she is committed to raising my personal standards to stop drinking sodas.
All right, let's go.
No, that's very important because I realize
Come
that
on,
if
I'm
I-
with you. Let's go.
If I eat certain things, they trigger other things. So some things I don't eat because they trigger the other things.
So here, let me tell you a real quick story. That is absolutely true for me. When I used to eat beef, it triggered me to want Dr. Pepper. So when I went Prosper Well last time, I think it was 60 days, it was almost 60 days. I think it was 54, 55 days that I went without eating meat. And when I started back eating meat, I didn't start off eating beef. I would just eat turkey, every now and then a little piece of chicken. Then after a few months, I gradually introduced beef back, right? And the first time I had that craving for that Dr. Pepper, I told myself, and I got this from you, I said, Dr. Pepper is like poison to you. You don't drink it. And by shifting that ideology in my mind about how I saw Dr. Pepper, it's how I got off sodas. It's how I got off of if I drink a soda now, it is a pre-planned thing I'm going to do.
And then it's over.
And then it's over. Like
Yes.
when we were on spring break, I said, I'm going to drink a soda, but I haven't had one since we've been back.
Very
and
good.
it's like, it's because now it's raising that personal standard, right?
Mama San says she's committed to moving her body every day for an hour. Somebody else, we missed the comment right after that. They said that they were going to start moving every day. I want y'all to move and drink your water and go to bed at a reasonable time. That's what Lakeisha said. 2 miles a day is her personal standard. No meat since October last year. Adrian says I'm committed to getting on my bike 5 days a week. And the truth of it is, I'm going to tell you, these things seem grievous at first. Well, let me say this. In the beginning, they may not seem grievous, but there is a point where you think, why did I sign up for this?
Well, it's why I tell people you don't need motivation. You need discipline. Because discipline is the thing that hangs around when motivation is long gone. So you got to get disciplined. Raising your personal standard is about disciplining yourself. And discipline is simply forced obedience. So how am I going to force myself to obey? I'm going to force myself to obey by getting on this bike 5 days a week, according to what Adrian said. I'm committed to intermediate fasting. It's not always pleasant. I don't always feel like doing it, but I'm committed to it because it's my new personal standard for myself.
I love it. Carrie said she gonna stop yelling at her kids.
All right.
I remember when I made the decision to stop yelling at my kids. Oh my God.
One of the funniest stories when you made the commitment to stop yelling at them and that you was not going to make them, you wasn't going to make the other kids late because they were running behind when one of the kids wasn't. I wasn't there because I was traveling during that time, but I remember you calling me and telling me how shocked they was that you wasn't yelling and you wasn't fussing and that you did not take them to school first. I think you may have taken Jordan to school first.
I took everybody except the late kid. The late kid was like, I'm going to get detention. Well, I guess you like detention.
Personal choice.
Mom, come in the school. No, you just late. You're just late.
You have the right to be late every day if you like.
You have the
but
right
you
to
don't
be
have the
late
right
every
for me
day.
to make everybody else late.
But and what happened is I stopped yelling at people. I would say, I'm going to the car.
Yeah.
If you want to ride this round,
well, they hit them steps.
Yes, right? Raising my standards to being more welcoming when my husband comes home, dumping my day so it doesn't dump on him. That is a beautiful thing. And walking will really help that.
Mm-hmm.
Walking will really help.
We talk all the time about dumping your day. You got to find a way to dump your day. You got to find a way in which to get rid of all of the junk. I tell this story all the time. When I was a middle school principal, one of the things I used to do, I would come home, I would go to Tyson Park. I would swing for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. I would swing for 5 minutes just on the swing. I'd get off the swing and come home because just that 5 minutes of just swing on the swing, almost being a kid again, not thinking about anything, just helped me to unwind before I came in the house. So I didn't come in the house with a funky attitude with y'all because I was mad at some parent or some kids for doing something stupid and dumb.
Well, Eve says she's incorporating more salads, greens, fruits into her daily diet, and she's
That's
eating
good.
slower and savoring the food.
There you go.
And I see the difference in decreased bloating and more satisfaction. One of the rules that I set for myself is that I don't eat in the bed anymore. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I don't, because I be in the bed eating.
You be eating it, but I don't eat in the bed.
I be in the bed.
In fact, the other day you had some French fries before we started this, and I got some French fries, but I stood up while I ate them because I don't eat.
That's your new personal standard.
And I also, if you notice, I almost always now eat dinner at the table. I don't eat at the couch anymore. No. I try not to do that because it allows you not to be mindful of how much food you're putting in your body.
Here's what's so funny, right? Here's what's so funny. You have to be careful. And I'm gonna share this because it happened. I did notice you were eating at the table. And you know what the enemy tried to whisper to me? He said, Sean thinks she better because she already eating at that table. But you never said anything to me about eating in the bed or eating on the couch or anything. You never said anything. But the enemy, he literally said it the other day. I saw you sitting over there eating at the table. And he was like, look at Sean over there at that table. She thinks she's better than you eating at that table. And I was like, Sean has the right to eat at the table if she wants to. Leave me alone, devil.
Oh, he old line wonder. He told me you think you better than me because you run. And I said, I just said, maybe he is. Maybe he is, but who ain't running? No, I'm just saying we call them intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
And we have to learn not to be doing stuff to other people or responding to other people about our own input.
Right.
I eat almost all my snacks. I eat almost all my snacks at the table. I eat all my meals at the table.
I noticed that.
Because the truth of it is that I understand that is the way that I plate my food. I make myself plate it. Even when I think about it, even when I'm eating like my pecans and
I
my
see you counting them 12 pecans.
I count them out.
Although y'all was laughing at me when I was counting out my pecans, but we ain't gonna get into that. We ain't gonna get into that tonight.
Couture said that I'm committed to starting my role back as a girl trek leader here in Northwest Arkansas in order to help Black women walk for better health. I would be interested in doing that.
Hey, what's a trek leader?
I don't know, but I want to challenge you. Send us a message and tell us what that is, because I would be interested in doing that too. But I want to tell you, and whatever you're going to do to help other people, make sure you do it for yourself first.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. Carrie said, I'm going to start not eating food on the couch. Baby, let me tell you something. That couch will get you. Don't eat. And if you eat food on the couch, you gotta take your 2 cups of popcorn, put it in a bowl, and eat the popcorn on the couch. But here's what typically happens. If you eat while doing something else, you don't eat slow, so you don't realize how much you ate.
That's true.
I read we should always plant our feet at the table and not drive and eat. Yeah, baby, that drive and eat. All right, listen, do you want to give them your announcement? Because I think we could go on, and maybe after your May thing, we can come back and talk more about this.
Yeah, my thing's not even in May.
When is your thing?
Oh, it's next week.
Next week?
Oh, it's next week.
So in May, we're going to kind of keep going in this line because we really want to help people get healthier, especially, we want to see Black people get healthier because we got to take better care of our bodies. We got to get rid of some of these diseases. So we're going to talk about this. And you know what I was thinking about this?
What?
I was thinking about how 1 month this summer, we need to do the 100-mile challenge where we invite everybody to join.
Oh, yeah, we can do it.
We can do a 100-mile challenge. Maybe we get some T-shirts and sell them and stuff. But I think we should do that. And I think we should all set to try to improve our lives. And if you ride your bike, you can convert those
you can
miles.
do a Google Doc and everybody can put their miles in there every single day.
Yeah, I think there's a way to do that. All right. Yeah. Okay. So what are you doing next week?
Here's what's going to happen. I've been working on this for you guys. Pay attention. Here is my special announcement. Okay. Next week, I am inviting you to join me. I have some special guests who I finally was able to lock down and get them to come and to have this conversation. It is happening next Tuesday night on April the 16th at 7 p.m. I'm going to create an event for it. I'll tag as many of you as I can. You should share with your friends and family, but especially you singles. Especially the singles have been asking for over a year. They wanted to have something kind of dedicated to just them. And I'm telling you, next week is going down. April the 16th at 7 p.m. We're going to dive into the subject of gender expectations in dating. We are going to call it Who is Bringing What to the Table? The 50-50 debate. I'm going to have a guy with me. I'm going to have a young lady with me. We're going to talk about this idea of what dating looks like in 2024. And not just what it looks like. We ain't just talking about, oh, it's bad. We're talking about the full nuance of why 2024 dating looks the way it looks compared to even when we were dating. What has changed? What has happened in this idea about who's bringing what to the table? Because there are men out there saying marriage ain't for me. Marriage isn't for me. It's if I get married, the best I can hope for is that if I get divorced, I lose half of everything. But there are women out there who are saying, hey, I shouldn't bring anything to the table but me. I am the prize. But we're going to talk about the economics of this and why this mindset has been detrimental to people dating and finding love and relationships. It's going to be good. I'm just going to be the moderator. I got my boo thing, so I ain't single. This don't, but y'all been asking for it. It is planned. It is happening. Whether you're there or not, it is going to happen on April the 16th. That is next Tuesday night. So mark your calendars. I'll be announcing this on Sunday. I'll be talking about it next week during our, I guess I'll talk about it. It'll be Tuesday. I talk about it on Sunday. I'll be putting it out there, but you should invite your friends and married couples. You should come too, because you're going to have some good advice. I'm sure that you can put in the comment section when some of those singles are saying some stuff and you like, child, that ain't the right way to think. We want to get this out because I still believe in love, and I believe people can find love.
Oh, say it again.
I believe in love.
I believe in love.
And I still believe that people can find love. I just think that so many different things have happened and we are not aware of them. And if we can become aware of them, then we can understand these gender expectations around dating. And we can really talk about who is bringing what to the table and why should they be bringing it to the table and whose table is it? And then how do we divide that table?
If you think about it, it's just it seems cultural, but it's actually demonic.
Yeah.
Because it's the will of God that man and woman be better together than they are apart. And it's to make us so poisoned toward each other.
It is, but there are key nuances for why it's happened. Yes, it's demonic. I agree 100%. But we need to understand how we got here. And if we understand how we got here, then we don't have to be ignorant of the devices of the enemy, and we can fix this. Because if you're a single person and you actually want to be in a relationship, I'm telling you, next Tuesday is the night for you. It's the night for you. Now, if you're one of the people say, look, I don't want to be in a relationship ever again in life, you might want to find something else to do then.
Or maybe they just want to come and check it out still anyway.
Maybe, but maybe not, because we're not going to be here talking about just how it's pee in the dating pool. We already know that. We're going to talk about how you can get in the pool where there ain't no pee. Because there are pools where people getting married every day. People are still finding people every day.
All them people got married at the eclipse.
Yes, all those people.
People.
I'm encouraging you to be there. I'll pull an event up. I'll put it out there. But you should invite your friends and family to come. It's going to be amazing.
All right, that's great. Okay, and so I've already picked a month. We go do the 100-mile challenge in June.
Good. I was hoping you didn't say July.
No. We go on vacation in June.
We
still can walk.
We can still walk. We can walk before, but I hope you didn't say July. July's my big bike month.
We'll do it in June. We go do the 100-mile challenge in June. But that's the thing. People can ride bike. They just have to do the conversion to get the 100 miles. No, you have to give bike riders a longer more way. We'll think about it. It's going to be a 100-mile challenge.
It should be May or June.
June.
Okay.
All right. Carrie says she in because she does community standards well.
Okay.
All right. We love y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out. We appreciate the 82 of y'all who rock to the end with us. We hope Relationships 101 is making a difference for you. As you leave a comment, share on Facebook how it made an impact for you. And know this, even when we forget to post, the second Tuesday of the month, we're going to be here.
Yeah.
So
we did an event this time. I
did.
I invited several people, and people can show up, or they can always watch the replay. But invite your people for next Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday night, we'll promote that. All right. We love y'all. Have a
All
great
right.
week.
Take care. Bye-bye.